Hello, you're listening to Voice of Uganda Radio, and I am your host, Miss Brenda, for the next 2 hours here of Freedom at Hand here on Voice of Uganda Radio. So thank you so much for staying a part of the day's programs and everything that as it unfolded today. I normally come to you on Sunday mornings, but I passed my time on because we were going to have a guest that was going to come on the program that things got a little away from us and he didn't make it in time, so we had to go on with our other programming. Let me just say one thing in regards to that is that, here at Voice of Uganda Radio, we're doing everything possible to bring you live interviews because we understand and we know that we're not the only ones with the questions and need answers to things. We understand that you, our listening audience, may want to call in and participate and be a part of asking questions to these individuals that we try to set up here on the program that you might normally not be able to ask those questions because of the situation there in Uganda. So we do apologize when those things don't go the way that we hope they would go, because we here at Voice of Uganda Radio, we also have the opportunity to record these interviews and play them back for you at a later date. But we choose not to do that. We try to keep them live so that you can be a part of the programming. So I say that in saying, please understand that if at any point in time we do bring these broadcasts to you and they have to be pre-recorded, it's simply because everyone's timing doesn't always match up because, when you're in the United States, when you're in Canada, UK, in Uganda, all the time zones are so very different all over. And so we try to work those things out the best that we can to make sure that we can get things to you live. But, if for some reason that starts to be a problem and something that we can't do, we may have to start recording those shows and bringing them to you later. So we do appreciate you, our listening audience. Your loyalty, you come and you show up and you're part of our programs throughout the weekend and the weekdays, and we thank you so much for making us a part of your day and a part of your weekend, because we know that that's important time that people spend with their families and other things that they need to do now that the holidays are among us. But we do appreciate you here at Voice Uganda Radio, and like I say, we do apologize for that not coming through this morning, but I am very, very excited and very happy to be here with you on this Sunday afternoon here in the United States. And I'm sure the time zones are very, very different for wherever you may be and listening to the station today. My heart is like everyone else's here at Voice Uganda Radio. It goes out to the people of South Africa, the people of Africa, everyone who has ever been touched by or known Nelson Mandela, which would probably be the world, as to his passing. And we have lost a great, great leader, but what a joy it has been for all of us to say that we have lived among one of the greatest leaders. It's not just someone that we will read about in history and know him from the pages that history will write, but we know him because we were able to share the planet with him, and that in itself is a beautiful thing. So I know that our listening audience, those of us here at Voice Uganda Radio and the American people, feel very honored to have been a part of his legacy and his life here on Earth. I'm going to have a guest today who will be coming in probably in about a half an hour from now. We're going to have Musana is going to be on the program today. He'll be on for at least an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how the interview with him goes, once he joins me on air later on. He just felt the need, and I felt the need to interview him a little more, not just for the American people, but for the Ugandan people as well, on a lot of the things he had to say on, shall we say, his coming out party, on how he felt and the things that he shared about the sitting president there in Uganda right now at the present time. I know that there's a lot more conversation that needs to be had on that, and a lot of people may have more questions that they may want to have answered or share some of their own opinions about that as well. I know that it was talked about a little bit on the earlier morning programs, but here on Freedom at Hand, that's what we're talking about, and that's what we're all about is freedom. And so we want to elaborate on that a little more because, there was a trust and the Ugandan people had many, many decades ago. And that trust has been broken. And that trust was never entered into with the same understanding from both parties. So I really hope that you'll stay attuned. That interview is going to be coming up in about 30 minutes from now, and we'll elaborate and get into a little more of that conversation. You feel more than welcome to call in, talk, and be a part of the conversation once we get that started and once we get going there. Um, I have to tell you honestly, our president here in the United States, Barack Obama, whenever he gets the chance to talk to us about his feelings, his emotions on what's happening on the continent of Africa and what's happening in Uganda, he does. He puts that in a speech, or he kind of brings it, he sheds light on it for us here and as the American people. And I'm very, very happy that he does that, because the listening audience here on the American Connection and on Freedom at Hand, and then some of the other English programs that come on, it's very good for the American people. As you understand and you know from just listening to the legacy and the life of Nelson Mandela, how the world had to get on board. It had to, the international community became a part of liberating that country and freeing that country, which brought about change for everybody. And even though we were not affected as affected as a people in South Africa, the stories still warm our hearts. They changed us forever. Barack Obama does that same thing with us, is that he feels the need to share and say things so that the American people understand and know. We live in privileged times. We live a privileged life that a lot of people don't have. And a lot of people are not able to even know what that even feels like. We're not talking about privilege from the aspect of being wealthy. We're talking about privilege from being free and having freedoms, living in a true democracy in which a democracy works. That was my need to have Musana on and do the interview with him that's going to be coming up here in about 30 minutes here on the program. Because there is a freedom that we all experience that the Ugandan people, other than those that are in the diaspora and those who have maybe traveled outside of the country and been a part of visiting family members or others outside of Uganda, have been able to have a short window into seeing what that looks like and what that feels like. But when we talk about the mass amount of people in Uganda, they have no idea, because they live in a time, in a president who has been sitting in office way, way too long, who has forced his views and his opinions on a people, and that is the way in which he feels like the country and the government and everything should be ran. And we outside know that that's not true. So when the general decided to come out, the colonel decided to have his coming out party on speaking on behalf of what he knew to be true from the sitting president, it breaks your heart. And here in the United States of America, the hearts of the American people can find no comfort in a trust that a people had for a man that was sold himself on liberating the country and moving the country forward. And here we've talked about time and time again here on Freedom at Hand and on the American Connection on how the people of Uganda still live in the 1800s as far as where the American people were, the Black African Americans were in the United States of America during that time. And we have all got to stand on board to make a change here and to make a movement forward. Right on the tips of Nelson Mandela's life and his legacy and his death, we all have to start asking ourselves those same questions. There's a passage in the Bible in Corinthians that talks about love. And it says, love is patient, it is kind, it is not envy, it is not rude, it is not boastful, it is not self-seeking, and it goes on and on to say all of these things. It talks about how love endures all things. And that is the thing that strikes me the most when I listen to some of the programs this morning and I hear about some of the things that are starting to come out in the media about things that people knew about this sitting president long before this day and time. And yet people went along with this. People were a part of this. Maybe the people that went along with this and the people that were a part of this, maybe they felt like they could be a part of making a change later on. Maybe they didn't think that this regime would be in power as long as it has been in power. Maybe they felt that this was their way of making a difference, because later on down the line, maybe they wanted to separate out and really make a difference. But as they could tell, the more power that he obtained, the more powerful he became, which made any type of move toward liberating the country on their behalf almost virtually impossible. Um, but yet we are responsible for each other at the end of the day. All of us are responsible for each other at the end of the day. I cannot live here in the United States of America in the comfort in which I have and be at peace with myself when I know that there is a country that the people are suffering daily, just from the fires that we just saw in the market square there. When I saw that, I can't remember the quote or who said it a long time back, but it was what I felt like when I saw that, putting that quote into context, is that the people of Uganda were dumped out on the floors of the planet, because every picture, every interview, everything that I saw from that, people were on the ground mourning and crying, on their knees in disbelief. No one seemed to be on their feet. Everybody was just weak, and they were numb at what had just happened to them. A generation of people who their government has thrown aside have found a way and to make a living for themselves. And this is how they're treated when they try to make a living and a life for themselves. Dumped out on the floor of the planet because of the poverty there, because of the medical treatment there. There are no jobs. It is the most unemployed place on the global map. People are starving. There are no meals. People don't know how they're going to take care of themselves from one day to the next, from one moment to the next, from 1 hour to the next. We cannot sit aside and look at that and think that there's nothing wrong with that. And for a president to sit aside and think that there's nothing wrong with his people in agony like this, he has yet to come out and make a statement that makes any sense to the American people, any Ugandan that is out in the diaspora, and the Ugandan people as to his sorrowfulness of what has happened to his people. It scares me and it saddens me at the same time when you have a president that sees these type of things happen to his people and doesn't feel the need to rush to his people, to the need of the people, to comfort them, to console them, to say what their government's going to do to help them, to sympathize with them, or to apologize for what has happened to them. If this happened in the United States of America, our president would have made an announcement on the TV for sorrowfulness. When there have been shootings, when there have been gang violence, when there has been any type of thing that has changed the face of a community, there has been apology, not just from the American people, but from our president as well. Where is the president for the people in the Republic of Uganda? Why is he not making his face known and his voice heard through the atrocities and the things that continue to happen to his people? Could it be that what the colonel has said about him is true, and that the feelings that one should have for its people has never been there, so he was never connected to what happens to move the country forward anyway? He separated himself out long before he ever became a part of it. Obama has talked numerous times about the demise of the Ugandan people, the demise of the African people. It interests me more when he talks about the demise of the Ugandan people. If all of us are intellectual enough to know what that means, but if one goes to the dictionary and you look this up and you think about the demise of Uganda, it's death, which we know, those of us who are in the diaspora, those of us who are outside of the country know that this is something that is happening on a moment-to-moment, day-by-day basis in Uganda. There is a death. This country is dying. This country is dying daily. And what are we doing to make sure that this doesn't happen? It's a death or it's a dying. It's a passing. And when we think of passing or passing on, or you think of the sadness and the sorrowfulness of that. So we're talking about a group of people that have nothing. They wake up, they go to bed in a sorrowful state of mind, and they wake up in that same state of mind because they see no way of liberating themselves. In demise also speaks of a loss of life, the end. Are the Ugandan people living or are they dying? If they're living, then let's rejoice in that and be a part of that with them. But if they're dying, then we need to be a part of that with them as well. And we can no longer turn our backs and have a deaf ear to a president who seems to think that there's nothing wrong with this. But in the international community, we're having the conversations, and the conversations are starting to come up everywhere as to what is happening to the Ugandan people. We cannot stand aside and we cannot allow these things to happen. I wish that the Lord Mayor would have been a part of the program this morning because, I even had my questions that I had for him on behalf of the American people. What happened to him and his treatment and the things that the government is doing to him is very, very wrong. But at some point in all of our lives, we have to stand behind him and say that what he is doing is right on behalf of the Ugandan people, because little by little, the country continues to deteriorate. Power continues to be taken away from the hands of the people and continue to be placed in the hands of rulers and dictators who have no remorse for anything that they do. They are so disconnected and so disassociated with the people of Uganda that it's all about their obedience more than anything else that they can do for the country. When you have to go out and round up young men and into trickery in order to fight wars that they have no part in, that they did not start, that they do not care to be a part of, to fight the wars, to keep you in power, to keep you in the place in which you're at, it's a sad day in Uganda when we all stand aside and allow these things to happen. He may not be putting a gun to their head in the streets, but eventually he's putting a gun to their head. Because I tell you what happens in instances like that. If you take me right now, by will or by force, to a camp that I have no way of getting out of because the people that brought me there are now sworn to keep me there. So I have to learn the traits of fighting to defend myself in a war and in a place that I don't even know how I got here. And then you take me out hundreds of miles away from where I live and from my loved ones, and you throw me off a truck in the middle of a war. What do you think I'm going to do? If somebody shoots at me, I'm going to shoot back, because then it becomes survival. I have to start fighting for my life in a war that I did not ask to be a part of, and in a situation that I found myself helpless in. But in order to stay alive, I have to continue to fight. We talked about this last Sunday, when we talked about the 54th Regiment of Massachusetts, the first African American group of soldiers that were put together to fight in the Civil War. Now, they were not treated like these men were, because they were fighting for freedoms and their rights to free other blacks. They were fighting for, liberation from slavery. But yet they still fought. So these young men who were being rounded up in the streets of Uganda and taken out, they're fighting in a war that they did not even ask to be a part of. And these type of things will continue to happen, because what happens is these people die off daily. These people die off weekly. And there is no voice. There is no one to say, where is this person? What happened to this person? And when will this person be back? And the government sees no accountability. I mean, the accountability used to be in the form of the corruption, and we understand and we know the corruption that's happening there in the government in a powerful way. But what's happening to the citizens where their free will is taken away from them and they're forced to fight in a fight that they no longer want, that they do not care to be a part of. There is corruption in that as well. And there's corruption in a government that thinks that there's nothing wrong with it and that it's okay and that it's the liberties and rights of the Ugandan people to want to fight for their country. But are the people of Uganda in these wars, are they really fighting for their country, or are they fighting on the behalf of a man who needs to continue to have power and control in a country that's slowly slipping away from him? And we know, because so many groups are starting to form up and so many things are popping up all over the place, where he's starting to question who he can trust anymore, because people are tired of living in the democracy in which he says that they're living in, when they know truly that this is not what's happening. It's our time. It's time. It's our time. It's Ugandans' time. It's time to liberate the country and make it whole again, to free the people of Uganda from the slavery in which they're in. And when I say slavery, I don't even just mean for the Ugandan citizen, the grassroots people. I'm even talking about parliament. I'm talking about the court systems. I'm talking about all of those in high positions in Uganda, even down to the police and the armed forces. Slavery is everywhere in Uganda, because anyone in Uganda right now knows and understands that if for any reason whatsoever they turned against this government, or they showed favoritism in any way towards the opposite of what's happening, or any sympathetic ears in any way against this government, they would be no less to this man than the people that they're fighting or torturing themselves. So there's a lot to be said about where this country is and where this country needs to go. With that being said, I will elaborate on a few more things here in a little bit, but I think our guest has finally come on board. Hello, are you there?
No, it's not here yet.
Okay, he hasn't come on board yet, so I'm gonna go ahead. But so we've got to understand, and this is a thing that I have even been telling you, those of us that are in the diaspora. We may not be affected today, but what's going on in Uganda will eventually bleed outside the walls of Uganda, and it will affect us all. Some of you already know this because of some of your family members that, some of you that are in the UK, some of your family members are having a hard time communicating with you and have a fear of calling and being a part of what's going on with you, and you sending monies to them because of the FUF. They're afraid that the government's going to think that they're trying to get information, sneak information out of the country. One thing this government needs to understand and know, that we are getting the information. The information is sneaking outside of the country. There's nothing he will ever be able to do to stop that. Because whether it's good information or whether it's bad information, it all feeds into us and it all tells us the stories that we need to know. Because this is one thing that we can honestly say that is happening there in Uganda. The deterioration of the Ugandan people, mind, body, soul, and spirit, has changed the face of the Ugandan that we all know and love. And when, I don't know about you, but when I visit Uganda, I want to remember the people the way that I remembered them when I visited there,
Brenda,
you
have a
know,
call.
decades ago. So with that in mind, with the deterioration of mind, body, soul, and spirit, please keep that in mind as we go on to our guests and we start our interview here with Musana. Are you there?
Yes, I am, Ms. Brenda. Good evening, good afternoon, and I'm glad to be here with you today.
Well, I thank you so much for being a contributor and a part of not only the American Connection, but Freedom at Hand. You are always calling in and always being a part of the conversation, and it's always a pleasure whenever I can bring you back on as a guest so that we can elaborate a little more on what's going on. So I'm going to give you just a few minutes here, and then I'll question you from a little bit of what you're going to share with our audience here today on Freedom at Hand about exactly what's going on and what the Colonel had to share on his coming out party on the sitting president there in Uganda now. So go ahead and just share some of that information, and then I'll pick up and we'll go into the interview from there.
Yes, thank you so much. And first of all, I would like to say hello to our listeners. And my name is Usana, co-host for the Gwanga Muje program. And I'm glad to be on your program today, American Connection. And what I really want to emphasize today to our listeners is what's been going on in our country. And it's very, very known that country is going down the drain. And this is done none other than the man who is not a Ugandan, the man who is a Rwandese. And for so long, we've been telling people, whoever has 2 ears, we've been saying all along that Museveni is not a Ugandan. And it didn't come as a surprise for those who had the General Seducer in the UK, when he came out and he said, Museveni is not a Ugandan. So after I heard that and so many other things he said, I was appalled that finally somebody who knows Museveni from childhood, somebody who knows Museveni very, very, very well, has come out and said it right the way it is. Because the general, by the way, Mr. Brenda, he was the chief intelligence of Museveni's government for a long, long time. And so what he says has some weight. Nobody can dispute it because he has been in the inner cycles of the Museveni's government and in Museveni's life. And the General Seducer was one of the first original people whom Museveni contacted to start his so-called struggle. But again, going back, the former president, Milton Obote, he kept saying Museveni is not a Ugandan. And also, Idi Amin said so. And there is no way that Museveni can do what he has done to our country if the man was really Ugandan.
Well, and let me just elaborate on that for a few minutes, because we talk a lot about how he is so separated from the people of Uganda. So I remember when Barack Obama was running for president here in the United States of America, and the whole issue was around, was he truly an American? Because I don't know if you remember, but they tried to say that he was not truly American, so he had to bring his birth certificate and proof that he was born in Hawaii and he was indeed an American in order to run. So how could this have gotten past the Ugandan people or the government that a person could be running Uganda who's truly not a Ugandan, when we know that this same issue came up for our president here in the United States of America?
Yes, Ms. Brenda, our system in Uganda, as far as birth is concerned, is very, very, very different from the American, system, because here they keep records. But remember, in Uganda, more often children are born at home. Children, those who are born in the hospital, yes, they get birth certificates. But majority of the children born in Uganda, they are born in rural areas, in houses and midwives. They are not really, born in Uganda. I mean, in the hospital. Now, going to Barack Obama, those who are saying that Obama was not a Ugandan, I don't understand.
An American, you mean?
An American, excuse me. I don't understand where they get this from, because Obama was born in Hawaii, and Hawaii became a state in 1952, if I'm not, I think it was
yes.
1952. It became a state, and then I think Obama was born in the late 50s. So anyone who says that Obama is not an American, I mean, it is beyond understanding, because there are so many records to prove otherwise. But in Uganda, yes.
Yeah, so I understand what you're saying, and this is just to help our American audience and those that are listening. So if we're saying that there are hundreds of children born in Africa in rural areas, at what point do they hit some sort of registry to show where they're born and the proof of who they are?
Okay, in most instances, they don't even have to go through the registry and all that because we do not have that much in Uganda. So in most cases, when a child is born in the village, okay, that's like the birth certificate because people know so and so had a baby. And when that child grows up, that child is known in the community of being born there. And also, the child or the parents of the child have got, a relative and the grandparents where they were buried and great-grandparents. For example, I personally, I was not born in the hospital, and I can prove my Ugandan citizenship by going where I was born, by showing my great-grandfather's, graveyard, and also talking to people, the elders. If a child is born in Uganda and is born in the rural area, it's a known fact that that child is a Ugandan based on the records, not actual records, but based on events that has taken place when that child was born. Now, and when you're growing up, you know that okay, my grandfather is so and so, and in most cases, Ms. Brenda, when we come on our program, we usually identify. I always say, my name is Musana Muzukuru wa Munji, meaning that my grandfather, his name was Munji. And when Kebi comes on, he says the same thing. This is Kebi Muzukuru wa so and so, meaning that he's, you can prove the roots without having a birth certificate. But in the case of Museveni, none of that exists. If Museveni was born in Uganda, which means, in most cases, that his great parents would be in Uganda. And if not so, let me suppose that his mother came to Uganda when he was pregnant. Okay? If that was the case, people on the village would come out and say, okay, Museveni was born at such a time. In that case, usually what happens is that they have like a landmark. For example, when we have like when there was a World War II, they would say he was born between this and this. Such events were taking place. Then you can know the age of this person. Or they might say, when the king was exiled to Uganda, to Britain, that's the time when this person was born. But in the case of Museveni, it's a mystery, and he has kept it a mystery. But General Segisa has unlocked that mystery, even if we had an idea that Museveni was not a Ugandan. There is no way, Ms. Brenda, a true Ugandan can mismanage a country the way this man has done. There is no way, Ms. Brenda, a true Ugandan would kill people the way this man has done. We have true Ugandans, through and through. Real Ugandans born in Uganda, and they were all slaughtered by a foreigner just because you want to take power. Now, the saddest thing is that if somebody gives you latitude, if somebody gives you, welcomes you in your home, Miss Brenda, and then you turn around, you murder them because you want to take over the house, that's despicable. That's exactly what Museveni has done. Yes, going back to your question about how do people know that Museveni was not born in Uganda? Museveni himself has to prove where his grandparents' graves are. Museveni himself has to prove where his uncles are. Museveni himself has to prove where his grandmother or where his mother was born. If was not born in Uganda, Museveni has to come and tell us tell the nation what is going on as far as Museveni's origin is concerned. But
okay, so let's just go back to the beginning of this then. If we say that this sitting president truly is not a Ugandan because of it's difficult because of the way records and things like that are kept, when he ran for president of Uganda, was he running for president to be president of the people, or was he running for president for other purposes intended?
Well, he has proved it that his intention of running for president, actually not running for president, but his intention of picking up the AK-47, his intention of picking up the gun was to better himself, and I should say his family, and also people from his country. Mr. Brenda, you have to understand the history of our country. Museveni comes from a group of Rwandese. These people came from our neighboring country because they had problems, and a lot of them ended up coming in Uganda. And as far as we understand, Museveni came to Uganda as a child with his mother and his father. And that's how he came and settled in Uganda and grew up as a Ugandan. And because of that, he was so much involved, in politics. And you have to understand that since he came to power by the bearer of a gun, people had no choice. So all this being elected, Ms. Brenda, has nothing to do with people's choice. All this, he can say whatever he wants to say, that yes, he was elected. No. Mr. Museveni was brought in power by the bearer of a gun. And he has said specifically so many times that he's going to stay just a piece of paper, meaning elections will not make him leave power.
Well, because if we to think about it in this way, one of the privileges I have is I can run for any office in the United States of America, including the president, if I wanted to become president of the United States, simply because I was born here. We have military men, as you understand, in the United States, between the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marine. We have bases throughout the world. Even when those children are born outside the United States of America, but they're born on those military bases, they are still considered Americans, even though they were not birthed and born in this country. So what we're saying is he was not even born on Ugandan soil. He eventually came in someday as a small child with his family and lived and grew up in the Ugandan community.
That's so true. Here in the United States Constitution allows, or if an army personnel or a Marine or whoever who's in the military in the United States goes to serve the country outside the United States, that person, once they have children, especially on air base, where the U.S. military, U.S. Army, base is in a foreign country, that child becomes an American. Now, as I understand, if the child is born outside the United States, let me say on a diplomat, for example, the ambassador to Uganda has a child born in Uganda. That child is automatically becomes an American. But in Uganda, let alone the whole of Africa, we do not have military bases anywhere in Africa, or in other countries, specifically Uganda. We do not have such thing that once you're born outside of the country, you're born on a military base somewhere in the country, you automatically become a Ugandan.
So I understand what you're saying, that even if his mother would have been visiting an aunt in Uganda and he was born here, but they went back to wherever they are from, that child still would not be a Ugandan.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So what I'm understanding you to say is, like, if his mother was pregnant with him and she was visiting a family member in Uganda, and he was indeed born in Uganda, that does not make him a Ugandan citizen. He would have still been a citizen for wherever his family is from.
Oh, no. According to the Constitution, anyone who is born within the borders of Uganda automatically becomes a citizen. So if Museveni was born within the borders of Uganda, Museveni would be a true citizen. But unfortunately, that's not the case. We have to understand, it's the same thing applies to his children, all of his children. None of his children were ever born in Uganda. They are all born outside Uganda. And the only person in his family that is born in Uganda is his wife, Janet Museveni. But the rest, they are not born in Uganda. So there is a question mark if they can even run for the presidency of Uganda, being being that they were not born within the borders of Uganda. But, the Constitution has got so many different ways. I'm talking about the Constitution that Museveni raped, the Constitution that Museveni helped to make. It has so many ways that somebody can become a Ugandan. But I'm not sure if these kids, Museveni children, can stand for the president of Uganda.
Well, this becomes a huge problem for the people of Uganda now then, because he's already been in power so long, but it certainly can explain some of the situations and circumstances that have happened and continue to happen there in Uganda.
Yes, Ms. Brenda, this is what I'm trying to say. What's wrong with us Ugandans? How can we let somebody who is not born in the borders of Uganda, someone who's not a Ugandan and is not a Ugandan at heart, to come and torture us, to come and tear gas us, to come and kill us, and we keep quiet? This is a lion that invaded our home. It's very clear that if you have an animal invading your home, you have to defend that animal and drive that animal out of your home. But you cannot.
Well, because one of the things we understand is everybody has a love for their people. If you have children and you have a family, you have a love for those children and that family, and you will do everything to keep them safe and make sure they're okay. We can go on to further to say with Nelson Mandela, the reason he truly loved the people of South Africa was because those were his people, and he wanted to see them move forward in a greater way. So when you are connected to a people, then the need is there to protect and to move them forward. But if you have no connection, then I don't understand how you could truly serve the people that you put in place to serve if you're not truly amongst them.
Yes. It's everything this man has done in Uganda, he continues to do, proves that this man has no love for the country. For example, Ms. Brenda, last week, Museveni just paid $10 million to Tanzania. Tanzania is a country next to Uganda. What happened was there was a war in 1978-79 that toppled Idi Amin's regime. Now, the problem is that Tanzania helped us to overthrow the government in Uganda, and because of that, we owed the Tanzania that money, which is legitimate. We had to pay it back. But, Miss Brenda, if your child is hungry and you owe me money, what's going to be your first priority?
Oh, I'm going to feed my child first.
Exactly.
Because listening to what you're saying here now, we just had this whole fallout with the teachers, and he promised them if they go back and teach that they would get this money, and then some. So I'm having a hard time understanding how everyone except the people of Uganda are being provided for and taken care of.
Yes, you said it's so right that you're going to take care of your child because you have the love for your children, for your child, and your child is starving. You're going to do whatever it takes to feed your child before you pay your loan back. If Museveni really had Uganda at heart, Museveni would have said, let me put this money in Uganda, okay? Let me invest in Uganda, get more jobs for unemployed youth. Let me pay the teachers' salary. Tanzania could wait. Tanzania has waited for over 30 years. Okay? Museveni could have said, I'm going to do this for my people. And Tanzania would not just come and invade Uganda because they are not being paid. But to see that the man does not care about Uganda, the man does not care about Ugandans, this is why he's doing stuff like this.
I said just before you came on the show that what's happening to the Ugandan people is they're being dumped out on the floor of the planet. And that's exactly what you just explained. That's another issue of dumping them out on the floor of the planet because there is a need for everything and everyone around them except what is good and what needs to happen for the Ugandan people.
Definitely, you're very right. Uganda, with our leaders, I should say, the government of Uganda, Museveni's regime, is built on a rock of corruption. Museveni's regime cannot survive without corruption. Corruption is the fuel engine, is the engine of his government. Now, there is a report that just came out that members of parliament, by the way, parliament is the same as here, Congress or Senator, or Senate, member of parliament, they have these trips, they come up with these retreats where they are given money. And once they are given money, then they go and pass whatever bill they want to pass or whatever bill they want to oppose, to kill. Now, if this man, Museveni, was very much concerned about our nation, this thing would be not existing. And if it was, it should be at a minimal, I should say at a minimum, a minimal, occurrence. Museveni went to the bush, allegedly, to fight corruption. Corruption under Museveni's regime has skyrocketed. There is no government in Uganda that had ever allowed corruption to germinate the way it is under this man's regime. He has, without corruption, his government cannot stand.
Well, and talking about corruption to that degree, because the European Union is holding up $300 million of monies, fundings for Uganda, but they refuse to release the monies simply because they have to see a transparency where there is no corruption. And that has not been proven to them at this point, so they refuse to give Uganda the money. Now, what do you think will happen if the rest of the world gets on board and starts doing things like this? Because if we're talking about a government that solely runs off of corruption, that needs this money and this fundings in order to keep himself in power, the world will eventually put him in a position that we will disempower him as funds continue to be held back because of corruption.
You are very right. We put up an article on Purdue, our website, purdue.org. And I want to remind our listeners, if you go to purdue.org, click on Information Center, and you'll be able to read the articles we put there. Now, that article we put up there, I'll go into a little bit of what we put up there. Museveni's government, as I said, survives on corruption. And what has happened some time ago, the donors we are going to, we are coming one by one because they realize that the government cannot survive without corruption. So they all came, a lot of them came together and they said, we are going to stop giving money to Uganda. And Museveni's government was shaken because you cannot continue ruling the country with corruption. What is going to happen is that the money is going to dry out, but the people you are giving corruption, people who are saying corruption, don't understand the money has dried out. They are waiting for you to. They are waiting for you to be. Waiting for corruption money. Now, this money kept coming from donors or from Western donors. They kept coming in, and Museveni was able to keep, to keep the tap, to keep the vice, to keep bribing, the army, bribing the officials in the parliament, and you've seen him walking with bags in the when he goes to trips, when he goes to churches. Now, when this started happening, the donor said, "Wait a minute, we are going to stop this. We're not going to give money to Museveni." And by the way, by that time, Museveni thought by this time that money from oil would be flowing, but he found out that it won't be so, and the only way he can sustain himself in power is to keep bribing. Now, I want to understand, people to understand, since 2000, each year, the World Bank has been paying Uganda $600 million. I want you guys to go and multiply that money from since 2000 to 2013, $600 million. Where is that money gone?
Wow. Let me
Uganda is being called a failed state? Yes.
Yeah. Let me interrupt you on that note. We're going to come back to that because we have a caller and we want to at least allow our callers to come through too today. So, hey, caller, are you there?
Hello, Miss Brenda. How are you?
Dorothy, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I can stay on a line and wait for Mr. Musana
To finish up? Okay, we'll appreciate
Yes, ma'am.
that. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead and finish up with what you were saying. But let me just throw this in really quick to you, too. I know that even here on the American soil, there's starting to be questions of accountability for a lot of the American funds that have been given to him that there's no accountability for also. So go ahead and finish up what you were talking about with the monies drying up.
Yes. As I was saying that since 2000, each year the World Bank alone has been giving money to the government, $600 million a year. And that's only the World Bank, Ms. Brenda. But other countries, United States pays money, UK pays money, Norway pays money, Netherlands pays money, European Community pays money, you name it.
Yes.
The government in Uganda has separate money that is supposed to help Ugandans. And that's a lot of money. And as long as this money keeps pouring in Uganda, Museveni is gonna keep his regime on corruption. And Miss Brenda, we Ugandans outside Uganda in the diaspora, we can do something about it. But the major problem is that we do not seem to care. As I said before at the beginning of my interview with you, that we let this man kill us, knowing very well this man is the Rwandese, and we cheer him on killing us. We cheer him on destroying our nation, as if we have another country we're gonna call our own. So
okay, because let me bring this in really quick. And then we're going to go over to Dorothy. I want to bring her in on the conversation too. The American people hear these type of conversations, and the American people know from what we give here in this country to Uganda. And we don't understand why the education system is falling apart, why part of the university is closed down and falling apart, why the medical conditions are happening there in Uganda that are happening, why there are so many poor people in Uganda. Because if you just took a calculator and 1 year and added up all the monies in which you're saying that this country is getting in 1 year, it is getting enough money to run itself as a country that could really be on the same platform as most countries that evolve in an economy that makes money to continue to grow and to continue to thrive on. Dorothy, go ahead and comment on what he was sharing there and what I just said.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brenda. Thank you very much, Mr. Musana, for the interview. Thank you so very much. Ms. Brenda, I couldn't help myself. But most of the things Mr. Musana has explained really well. But I'm going to come on to this point, I think, to make my point clear. The first question you asked, not the first, but one of the questions you did ask Mr. Musana, after the discussion if Museveni is a Ugandan or not, which he really expressed very well, the money isn't. Because if you don't have a birth certificate or anything, let me say that they have asked him so many questions, and different times it is a different, I don't remember, he was born at home, I was born in Lukwingili, I was born in Tungam. The man is not that old, okay, not to know. But yes, if he doesn't, as Mr. Samson has said, there are so many ways. We have people who live on the village. They know that boy was born around this, as Mr. Samson has stated, around this was the, the king, or this is what was happening, that boy, oh yeah, we remember, that is the so-and-so's boy. But, we know Esther came. In fact, she went to Tanzania before she came to Uganda with a boy. So, we know more than that. But let me go to the question you asked Mr. Musana, that, okay, what was Museveni's intentions of coming to power? Because I feel like I need to contribute to this a little bit, okay?
Yes.
As Uganda, as we are right now, at this particular point in time, he has proved anything. But Museveni's intentions of coming to power, it was never to develop Uganda. It was never in any way to help Ugandans. Remember when he went to the bush, Museveni had gotten one vote in 80. The votes that were stolen were not his. But he insisted of going to the bush and fight for the people who are stealing the votes. But you can imagine what he's doing right now. This is a man who can tell a man of another state that don't worry. He told Galanga not to worry, go ahead and vote, and then I'll bring you 2 million Chiggas. When we say that people come from Rwanda, when we say people come from Tanzania and come and vote, we mean it and it is true. Thank God he has said it to another president, sitting president. So we know this is not a joke. So when they're interviewing him in France and he's clinging, the man is saying that, okay, Mr. Museveni, you've been in power for 27 years, okay? Are you intending to run in 2016? Oh, it will depend what my party says, But the party members don't say anything. If they stand up, they get killed, like in Brenda, okay? Yes. They get poisoned. So what are you saying? Anyway, let me go back to the intentions, the real intentions of Museveni coming into power. According to their master plan, to build a Tutsi empire in the Great Lake region. Ms. Brenda, I would like to inform you today that when those people came from Rwanda, the Tutsis separated themselves into many groups, and those groups went to different countries. Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, so many countries, and every country where they went, they called themselves a different name. So from those different countries' points, they were to go do their work. At one point, they would emerge and create their Tutsi empire in the Great Lake region. Okay? Now, when Museveni came to power, his intention, Uganda was to be used as a stepping stone first. And this is very clear. Because when he came to power in 1986, it took less than 2 years. The Ugandan money, the money was stolen from the banks. The money was cut. Those people who had money from the bank, they were cut from how many zeros? Okay? If you had 10 million shillings, you ended up with whatever. So, as soon as he got that money, that's when he went back and attacked Rwanda. Habyarimana and that of Burundi was killed. When they were killed, because don't stand here and tell me Kagame, Museveni came to Uganda much earlier as a younger boy, but Kagame also came later on as a refugee. But Museveni made Kagame. If Kagame grew up in Uganda, he went to school in Uganda as a refugee. He literally became a Ugandan. He was a chief intelligence officer in Uganda. But as soon as Museveni comes to power, Habyarimana is assassinated with that of Burundi. Then Kagame takes over Rwanda. You understand? Now, that was the first thing. After they take off Rwanda and Burundi, their next target will be Congo, which a fight they thought was going to be easy. But up to this point, it is still going. Yes. Now you see how the money is from Uganda. The Rwanda is built in such a way, and Burundi. You can compare the time he came to power and now, and you compare Rwanda, where Rwanda was and now where it is. And in the first place, was it a coincidence? How did Kagame end up being the president of Rwanda? We all have eyes and we see. So their intention in Uganda was to be used as a stepping stone to build their empire. And they have to start with Rwanda and Burundi, Congo, and then go on. Then afterwards, Uganda and Congo. As Uganda is a smaller country, but we have a lot of resources. Congo is a big, huge country with a lot, mega resources.
Yeah, which has brought a lot of attention.
After they use the money, yes. Yeah. Then, eventually, they were not going to stop there because the Uganda as a country, they want it. Okay? according to their master plan, they had to make now, after getting the money, they are doing whatever they want. Now, how do they take over Uganda? That's why the problem is that why would you kill the infrastructure? Why would you kill the education system? Why do you kill the hospitals, right? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you pay the teachers? Because why would you make people so poor? Why would you turn around and kill those people who helped you in the struggle? Those generals, those younger boys, those men who had mega resources, who had worked so hard that they stood back and they gave you everything you had to go back out the struggle. Why would you go back and kill them, Miss Brenda? Now, he started eliminating. The people who were eliminated as soon as the war was done was the Baganda and those people from northern Uganda. They were good fighters. They loved their country, so he had to eliminate them. Now, how do you take over Uganda? Make sure the children of Uganda don't get education. Make sure that people are so poor. Now, at this point as we are talking, they just come. They take your land. You put people, villages in northern Uganda, you burn their houses, put them on the lorry, take them around and dump them somewhere else, and bring it Rwandese from Tanzania to Uganda. Now they're on the stage where that they know they have succeeded, okay? Now they want the country. They want the country itself. So when Mr. Msana talks about this corruption, the money that is coming from all these donors, that's why people have started asking themselves that at this time and point, why would America? Why would all of these, Denmark, Sweden, whatever, all these countries, Norway, why are they still paying Uganda when they don't see no fruit coming from this money? People are wondering, are these countries buying off something else? We don't know what is happening. Because any responsible, these countries, they know. As long as Museveni sits in power, he will buy everything because he buys. He buys everything. The people of Uganda, they will never live to see a hospital. They will never live to see no school because he has to buy and buy to keep himself in power to make sure that their plan is completed.
Yeah.
Okay. In fact, when they interviewed him, he said he has been in resistance for 50 years. If he stayed in resistance and moved after 5 years, what would have happened? Because the man asked him that after 27 years, don't you think you need to step down and let other young minds take over the country? No, he doesn't think like that. They need to complete what they planned.
Well, yeah, because one would think that. And, you know, I'm going to go back to Masana real quick. This struggle has been going on for a long time. From listening to Dorothy and from listening to a few things that you had to say and some of the information that you were sharing, there were leaks long before now, before the colonel coming out to say that he was not a Ugandan. There has been leaks that have come out, and there have been times when this could have almost been eradicated before now. Why has the struggle continued on so long, and why now are the people rising up against it more so than they ever have before?
Well, Miss Brenda, this is the reason why we have this Voice of Uganda radio, and this is the very, very reason why we need a satellite radio to talk about these things so that people can understand what's going on in Uganda. Because as long as the masses do not have this information, Museveni will be happy and will stay in power. But as long as the masses can get access to such information we put out on Voice of Uganda radio, Museveni's hold on power will be in question. Now, I want people who are listening to us, all those people you saw being brutally killed in the riots in 2009, in 2011, in 2005, the bodies we saw on the streets, parents crying, those are real Ugandan children. Those kids didn't come from Rwanda and be killed on the street. Those kids or those people who were killed, they were born in Uganda, in their own country. We all saw where a pregnant woman was shot and her intestines came out. She's in our video. that woman is a Ugandan. And what was her fault to be shot? Because she's a Ugandan. And who did that? The man who is not a Ugandan. And this is what I've been telling you, the people, that, if we get the satellite radio going, these are very, very things we are going to inform our citizens so that they can understand where we belong, who is giving us a hard time, who is killing us, because the man is not a Ugandan. As long as he has an AK-47 and Ugandans do not have this information, Museveni will stay in power.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a question. Answer this for me, if you would, on behalf of the American people, and I want Dorothy to address it also. This is my question. I've just asked why has the struggle continued so long and why now? And you helped me to understand that, and I think the American audience understands it as well. The struggle has been so long because of communication, because the masses of people, in order to get this information to them, you can only go through satellite radio. Not even though we're on internet radio, it takes a lot more to get to the people. So I understand that, and that makes a lot of sense to me. But you said it, and I don't remember if Dorothy said it also, but I'd like both of you to comment on this. You said that his wife is Ugandan. So if his wife is truly a Ugandan, then how can she stand aside and allow the demise of what's happening to the Ugandan people?
Yes, Miss Brenda, you have to understand Museveni's wife, Janet, her family, her children, they have it all. And in most cases, if that's the case, people really don't care too much about the poor. They care about what they have. I want this, I want this, I want this. My family is okay, my family is okay. We just saw Natasha and her dad going to attend Mandela's funeral. That's what it matters. As long as their family is indeed in a good, they are having a good life. They don't care about those people on the streets. You've never heard Janet Museveni come out and condemn the brutality of these people. You've never heard Museveni come out and condemn the brutality of his forces. Actually, he's just calling we, the owner of the country, as hooligans. In fact, he is the one who's a hooligan. But, Miss Brenda, yes, this thing has been coming forward on and on and on about Museveni not being a Ugandan. And I remember very well, there is a lady, I think his name is Betty Kamya Namisango. She has a political party. She's the head of a political organization. And she was so much insistent about Museveni not being a Ugandan. And at that time, I remember, Museveni was so furious that this lady kept calling him not a Ugandan to prove his Ugandanness, to prove himself that he's a Ugandan. And Museveni, this came from Museveni's mouth. He said, if you do not stop saying that, I'm going to take you to the court of law. And Betty, that lady, said, it's good. I want you to take him to court of law. You prove your evidence. I'll prove to you that you're not a Ugandan. That case died. No mention of that case because Museveni knew that if that case went to Uganda, to the court, information will come out. So there are so many people that have been trying to bring this to the outside, okay? But the major problem that we people who are accessible to internet, people who are educated, Miss Brenda, we are the minority in Uganda, and we are not going to cause change. But the people who are going to cause change are the border people, border riders, people in the village. And what Museveni has done is to cut off information. They don't have access to any information. For us, we can sit here and scream all we want. But as long as the majority do not have this information, Museveni will stay in power for a long, long time.
Yeah, because go ahead, Dorothy, and comment on that too, because we know the education system is corroding just like so many other things there in Uganda, and that makes a lot of sense to me, because if the people don't have knowledge, they don't think there's anything to fight against or anything that's wrong.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brenda. The question, why the struggle has taken so long, there are many reasons. And some of the reasons I mentioned, explaining, giving them as examples when I talked before. Now, the problem is that Mr. Museveni is like a chameleon. He changes the color to, depending on what he wants. If you have heard Professor Mobile Musoke explaining to us that what is his principles, okay? He doesn't have no principles. He explains something when he wants something, and he explains it to benefit him, and he will change the same thing to explain it another way to benefit him on the other hand. So, here is why. One of the reasons, as I already told you, that the boys who spent time with him in the bush, those who were closest to him, those who were strong, those who he feared, including Andrew Kayira. That's why those people were murdered right when they hit Kampala. Because he knew those people didn't know him well. So he had to eliminate them. The struggle has gone so long because for those who supported him, who had the half of the country, he had to kill them and eliminate them, not to turn around another time and support somebody else. The struggle took so long. Who went to exile, that man would persuade them, they would come back, they release in 3 months, what is this man, Tito Okello, the stronger men that he feared, he tried to persuade them, if you made a mistake to go back to Uganda, they, after 3, 5, 6 months, they are dead of old age, but they are poisoned. Even those, like the Itongwas, who stayed in the exile. You talk about it hasn't even been a year since he was poisoned. The struggle has taken so long. But also the struggle has taken so long because the people, it took us so long to understand his real motive. You remember, the people of Uganda have suffered so long. People had a lot of faith in him. But the people of Uganda, as the people of the West, they did not understand the man. Because he did hide his true motive up to this day. If you go to study Museveni is more of a communist. Museveni is more of a Marxist, okay? When he first came to power, they were trading beans and whatever with Cuba. When he's talking, you know the people he quotes. Okay? Castro, Gaddafi, this person, this guy in North Korea, those are his best real models. What does that tell you? But when he wants something from America, when he wants something from Europe, he will come and pose as a capitalist. So, even the West, as people of Uganda, it took us so long to figure out this man. There were a few people who did wake up, but they were really screaming on deaf ears. Our brothers and sisters were killed in millions in camps in northern Uganda when people were dancing in the central. What was happening? His policy and the tricks of divide and rule. He's spending a lot of money to suppress the media. This started early on. Back home in Uganda, the media is suppressed, but he spends billions and billions of dollars, even right now, this time in point, even here in America. There are men and women who pocket billions of dollars, from Uganda to keep Museveni's image shining. Ms. Brenda, there is a lot of reasons why this took us so long. But most importantly, people who knew him, people who loved the country, people who understand the man, most of them, they are now dead. Now remember, those people who are like from 18, 25, 35, they don't know anything else. What they know is Museveni. There is no spirit of the love of the country. They think things are supposed to be like that. So when Mr. Museveni says, well, that's why I can never stop to sing a satellite radio. Because the people of Uganda need to know the truth. Somebody from Mitiana doesn't know what is happening in Kampala, yet we have 1 million radios. When you hear people lost their job yesterday from Akabo's radio and Radio Simba, those guys who hosted Mr. Lukwago, the world mayor, to voice his opinion. They were fired. The owner of those radio stations were told and given an ultimatum: either their radio houses, media houses are closed off, or they stand a chance to fire those people. Do you understand? From Mitena to Kampala is 40 kilometers. From Jinja to Kampala is not so long. How many hours drive? But people don't know what is going on. People have been caught off. That's why journalists are killed. That's why the media is suppressed. Okay? The man comes from one part of the country, he says another thing. He went to another part of the country, he says the opposite. But people clap. People don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know otherwise, Miss Brenda. Those are the few reasons, because if I sit here and start talking, I will not get.
I know. I understand. Musanal, answer this for me. This man, from listening to what Dorothy's saying and some of what you've shared also, he destroys his history as his history comes out to expose him. Most people are proud of their history, but this appears to be a man who continues to destroy anything that exposes his history in any way. The other thing I want you to comment on, too, is because we talked about strong men in leadership positions and how he's threatened by that. So can we honestly say that this is the reason behind all of the things that he's doing to the Lord Mayor of Kampala City there in Uganda? Go ahead and comment on that for me.
Yes, first, Miss Brenda, this is a misnomer where the leaders of the Western world call African leaders strong men. A strong man does not kill their own people. This term is misused, in my opinion. They should call these people dictators, but they use the word strong men, and perhaps by hearing, oh, we are strong, they keep doing what they have been doing. But anyway, going back to your question, the thing of Museveni being in power for so long, and why Ugandans have not taken a firm stand against his regime, is that he thrives, or he enjoys violence. Museveni's history is violent. I want our listeners to understand how this man is violence is so deadly to us, deadly to Ugandans. After Amin was overthrown, the BBC interviewed Museveni. By that time, he was the defense minister in Uganda. And they asked him, are you happy that the war to overthrow Amin was so short or didn't last long? To our amazement, this man, without any shame, he said he was not happy. And the interviewer or the correspondent asked him, why did you say that, Mr. Museveni? Museveni said that because the war took such a short time, people of Uganda did not consummate violence, meaning that people of Uganda did not have enough time to understand what violence is. To me, that means that he wanted more people to be killed. He wanted more people to lose their lives. He wanted more people to lose their property. And what was behind it? Because he believed that the more violence society is exposed to, the more it will be safer in the future. Now, a man who is not a psycho cannot believe such a thing. That's why, Ms. Brenda, you see that people are being killed, and Museveni comes out and calls them hooligans. Hooligans or otherwise. They are citizens. Hooligans or otherwise. They are supposed to face the court of law. Hooligans or otherwise. The president cannot come and say they should be killed because they are hooligans. Hooligans or otherwise. The president cannot come and say, I'm going to pass this bill, the bill to brutalize his own people. So, Ms. Brenda, we are having a very, very difficult time for people of Uganda to understand who the man they call president is, and for those who understand who Museveni is, mainly those in diaspora, have refused to take action.
Yeah, because answer this for me, if you will. From the comment that you just made, most people, when they start a war, they want the war to end as quickly as possible. So there's not you don't have all the casualties that you would normally have from war. But it appears to me that because he wasn't able to kill more Ugandans in this struggle and in this fight, it disappointed him that it ended so early. Is that what you're saying in the comment that you just made?
Yes, he was not happy that the war did not take a long time, meaning that the people of Uganda were not exposed enough to violence. And you have to understand that since we had our own independence, Ms. Brenda, that is 1962, we never had a peaceful change of government. Never. All the governments have been changed through violence. Museveni went to the bush in 1980 because he claimed that the votes were rigged. And by the way, the person who won the election never went to the bush. And when Museveni came and took power, he never said, okay, you lost the election, here you are. I'm going to reinstate you as the president. No. What did Museveni do? He took the presidency himself up to now. So what I'm trying to say is that
I think we might have lost him. Dorothy, he'll probably call back in just a second. Bloodshed is never a good thing. And you should never want that to be the course of action in solving any problem. I find it hard to believe that this president continues to make the comments that he will only go out of office through force instead of allowing a true and fair election to take place. So we can honestly say that even to this date, he still hasn't gotten a lot of his anger and frustration out of his system, if this is still the way that he thinks that the Ugandan people should be treated rather than allowing them to just come out and vote. I think I might have lost her too. I think I lost my.
Miss Brenda, I'm on.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Did you hear the question there?
About 7 being a violent person. I mean.
Yes, because I'm just thinking if you still want to go out in the same way you came in, instead of allowing the people a free and fair election to vote in, there's still a lot of anger in him towards the Ugandan people, or where's that anger coming from?
Well, Miss Brenda, as you know, any RM, at one point, Ms. Samsana said, why is that party called, National Resistance, whatever, army, movement? Why is he still in resistance? Yesterday, when they were interviewing him in France, he said he has been in resistance for 50 years, and he's still in resistance. Why is that? Why is any RM, National Resistance Army, whatever movement, why is it still called resistance? The man is simply saying, at one time he told us that he went to the bush and he hunted his animal, and he's still eating. He's gonna eat the meat. After that, you eat the bones. After that, you eat the skin. The man is telling you. In fact, at one time, he told me, you are telling me to go where? I'm not going anywhere. Okay?
Wow. Yeah.
Museveni's intention when he's telling you, Amir Pepper is not getting me out of power, I didn't come that way. But then, when you say, okay, what do you need? Okay, when you are willing to fight, I'm going to the bush again. So, he's telling you.
Yeah, it's so interesting here that Nelson Mandela felt the need to step down after the amount of time that he was in office, simply because he understood and he knew the mind of the younger people to come in to continue to move the country forward. So I don't understand why he's still fighting for a position which no one wants him to be in.
Okay, Miss Brenda, we have two people. We have Museveni and Nelson Mandela, okay? Nelson Mandela called himself a freedom fighter, and Museveni called himself a freedom fighter. I remember some time back I had somebody who came to the radio and said that word you can define it two ways. You can be a freedom fighter as Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, the reason he went to fight is because of those people being unfair treated. He went for the people, to fight for the freedom of the people. That's why the man would stay in jail for 27 years. That's why at one time they offered him to let him go because he had proved it to be impossible. And he said, I'm not leaving the jail without the rest of my friends.
We have a call.
Okay?
Yeah, I think Musina is coming back in.
No,
but,
is there other caller?
We have another caller. Hey, caller, go ahead. Are you there?
Yes, this is Charlie.
Charlie, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I have been listening to your conversation, and it is so. I think I want to have something to say about what's going on.
Yes, please do. Go ahead.
I strongly believe that the substance of your question, why is Museveni doing what he's doing to Uganda, I think it needs to be answered very clearly so that everybody knows what is going on, because there's a lot of conjecture and speculation going on. But I want to give a little perspective here. I have been trying very hard to understand what Museveni does and why he does that for a very long time. One of the things that we know is this. First and foremost, Museveni came to power without any exit strategy whatsoever. It was a do-or-die proposition with them. Why? It was very deliberately calculated so. If there is no exit strategy, you will always stay and fight. And the reason they never wanted to exit was this. When these people were in Rwanda in the 40s and 50s and 60s, the Tutsis were the ruling class. And if you know in their history, they even looked at other people like the Hutus and other smaller tribes as non-humans. When they came out, and after Abiyarimana, who was a Hutu, overthrew the government that belonged to them and had belonged to them for so many years, they were so shocked and appalled, and they vowed to create a kingdom for themselves somewhere else. But including including the country of Rwanda. When Museveni came to Uganda, he was supposedly 7 years old with his mother. His father had either died or been killed or whatever. There was this thing that they all vowed, that they shall have revenge. And because they were brought in a culture that looked at other people as less than them, that is how they were brought up. Everybody else was less than them in their culture. They were both put on this earth by God to rule over other people. I don't know whether people take this very seriously, because it runs through everything that Museveni has done ever since. During the War of Liberation, during the war in Lower Triangle, the one thing that they wanted to do was to set the stage for the eventual coming out of the Tutsi dynasty. This is not a conjecture. We have documents showing the Basuto dynasty. That was one paper out of which was this. We create a dynasty by first either taking over Uganda or taking over Congo. In order to take over Congo, they had to get rid of Mobutu. In order to take over Uganda, they simply had to get rid of Obote. Before they could do that, either mean took got rid of Obote. Either mean proved to be overly aggressive, and they went out. When Museveni came, when Obote came back a second time, Obote came as a weaker leader. Was weaker because so many people and so many power centers combined to throw out Museveni, to throw out Idi Amin. That was their chance. And as soon as they saw that chance, Museveni started recruiting these people into the army, even as they came into Uganda in 1979. I mean, in 1979. No, yeah, 1979 to overthrow Idi Amin. When he came over, when they came, there was only one ministry Museveni wanted, the Ministry of Defense. And he got it. That also set the stage for him to now start recruiting his people into the army. There is so many documents. There are so many documents showing that he recruited his people all into the army that was literally separate from the national army.
That's interesting. That's interesting to me that once upon a time he recruited his people into the military, but now it's by force of people who want nothing to do with him that he's putting in to fight this, to continue this war or this dynasty that you're talking about.
There is a level not only of arrogance but of confidence in that movement, because he can now get the very people he used to fear to now serve him. He is dead sure of his power now that he is reverting, he's changing tactics, because when he came into power in 1980, his very first business was to get rid of the North. He saw the North as his number one threat.
Yeah,
and
let me
after the Alice Lakwena thing, the Holy Spirit movement, he saw that as such a strong threat that he wanted to make sure that there was no threat coming out of the North. The second threat he saw was less military, but much more intrusive, and that was the Central. So those were his two targets. But the plan was, and I think maybe still is, that to use Uganda as the basis, destroy Uganda so completely, and use that as a stepping stone to creating the dynasty.
Yeah.
And the dynasty was going to be done this way.
Charlie, give me just a second here, because we got about 4 people out here. So I just had another caller to come in besides Musana. So let me go ahead and take the professor, or just real quick. Are you there, Professor?
Yeah, this is Maviru Musoke. Well, I'll brief. The reason I called you is to clarify on the concept of citizenship in Uganda.
Okay.
There are 4 ways to become a citizen in Uganda. One is by descent, ethnic or racial descent. The other is by parental descent. And the third one is by registration, or, for example, spouse. If a person gets married to a spouse who is a citizen, you can become a citizen by registration. And the fourth one is by naturalization. If you reside in Uganda for a certain period of time, you can request naturalization. However, we are talking about the situation affecting Museveni. You can only become a citizen by birth, and that's important phrase, by birth, if, for example, you are born in Uganda and one of your parent or grandparent was or is a member of one of the ethnic communities recognized by Uganda in the schedule of the Constitution. And that includes Banyarwanda, by the way, and that complicates the issues. They are Banyarwanda of Ugandan descent and they are Banyarwanda of Rwandese descent. And it is sometimes difficult to distinguish both, but it is possible to distinguish them. The other one, you can become a citizen by birth if your parent, you were born either in Uganda or outside Uganda, but one of the parents or grandparent was, at the time you were born, a citizen of Uganda. And this, I think Musana made a mistake to say that by being born in Uganda, a person becomes a citizen. We are not like the United States. For example, there are many refugees in Uganda, and they have children. Those children of refugees don't automatically become citizens of Uganda. They could later on become citizens by registration or by naturalization, but they can't be citizens by birth. And by birth is important because in order to be a president, you have to be a citizen by birth. So yes. Unless you fall in one of the two categories as a descendant of one of the ethnic groups put in the schedule, or you're a descendant of one of your parents by birth, then you cannot be a citizen. You cannot be president of Uganda. So I just wanted to clarify that you cannot. Not everybody born in Uganda becomes automatically a citizen of Uganda.
Okay, so with the examples you just gave us of all those 4 examples, under any of those, can the president that's sitting now in Uganda be considered a citizen?
Well, it depends on the facts. If he came as a child with a mother, he can never be a citizen by birth, because you can only be a descendant to be a citizen by birth of either one of your parents or your grandparent. So if Museveni cannot have a parent, one of the parents, as a citizen by birth, not by registration or by any other means, but by birth,
yes.
Then he cannot become a citizen by birth. So if he was born outside and he came as a child with a mother who was not a citizen but became a citizen after she resided in Uganda, then he cannot become a citizen by birth. However, if even by adoption he can't. Like if the mother came and married a Ugandan husband, that cannot entitle him to become a citizen by birth.
Yeah, because the law makes it very clear from what you're understanding and from anywhere in the free world. You have to be, that has to be your birth country in order for you to be president of that country.
Yeah, that's the important phrase, by birth, and I think that locks him out. There is no way one of the things we should point out also is the fact that, as Dorothy pointed out, he has changed his story of his birth. At one time, their parents could not remember when he was born. And then later on, he changed the story. He said he was actually born in Mbarara Hospital. Now, that's a very big discrepancy, because if he was born in Mbarara Hospital, there should be a record.
Records, yeah.
And if it is not there, then he was lying, and he cannot prove citizenship by birth.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for clearing that up for my American audience, because it gets a little confusing when you're listening to it, but I understand completely what you're saying. And from what you were explaining, Musana was right in saying that he is not a citizen of Uganda. Musana, are you there?
Yes, I am, Ms. Brenda.
Yeah, go ahead and comment to what the professor was just saying.
Yes, indeed, the professor has done a very good job explaining the ups and downs of the Ugandan citizenship. But the main fact is that the man who's killing us is neither Ugandan nor was he born in Uganda, but he is ruling us, perhaps willingly or not. He's ruling us, killing us, and we, the citizens of our country, we, the owner of our home, we've let him do this to us. The saddest thing, Ms. Brenda, is that the information we are providing right now, people who are getting this information, they know the information already. They have this information already. They understand Museveni is not a citizen. But this information is supposed to galvanize people in Uganda to bring about a change. And the only way we can do that, fellow listeners, is to have a satellite radio, because what we keep saying here, people in the diaspora, most people who are listening to us, they have this information. Now, if this information was filtered through Uganda, in Uganda, then we can cause a lot of uncertainty from Museveni's government. Because right now, Museveni is gearing up his son, who was born in Tanzania, to replace him as president. And that's one of the reasons why the general went into exile, because he was trying to expose that they will not accept his son to take over the presidency.
Well, that's because that's what Charlie was just saying. So you agree with what Charlie was saying, as he was building up his dynasty, and in doing so, his son would be the next in line.
Yes, but Miss Brenda, I've never seen such people that are so docile. I'm sorry to say this. I've never seen people who are unconcerned about the events going on in their country. And some of the people who are listening here have their friends been killed by Museveni, perhaps have their family members killed by Museveni, but yet they are not caring, they are not saying anything. Museveni has killed so many people, and among them, I don't know if you know this, we had a professor who was the chairman of the organization that eventually Museveni used to become president. Like an organization has a chairman and then a vice chair. Museveni was a vice chairman for this organization. But as soon as the regime, Museveni was about to overthrow the government, when everything was going well, like they have 1 month before they can get into power, the chairman all of a sudden died. He died in UK. And nobody ever understood what really killed him. As soon as he died, guess who was in line to become the president of the chairman? Yes, you guessed it. The man called Museveni. Now, there are so many circumstances that have happened, and we Ugandans, we don't even, question these type of things. That's how those have become to take affairs of our nation. According to what Museveni say, what they say, that the chairman of the group died of kidney disease. But unfortunately, the family of the deceased, they are there. And this gentleman died in UK hospital where they keep records, medical records. You could hope that perhaps somebody in the parliament, member of parliament, or someone, the family of this gentleman, Professor Lay, would come forward and say, I'm going to the UK embassy to demand medical records for my father or my husband. I think his wife just passed away. But the children have the right to bring their government to task.
Yeah, but it's like we had talked about on this show before. I see the professor just signed off, but we talked a lot on this show about pathological fear. And I think when you talk about the community and the diaspora and how people don't seem to have an urgency about what needs to happen here for the Ugandan people, I'm going to go back to Charlie, but let me let Dorothy speak on this really quick, because Dorothy, you've been a part of some of the conversations we've had about the fear that still moves throughout the Ugandan community.
Ms. Brenda, can I give you this? I'm going to sign off since I have a lot of other assignments.
Yes, go ahead.
And I thank our listeners to give me this chance, and I thank you very much for giving me this chance to appear on your show. And hopefully, everybody will join us again on Saturday when we present our Gwanga Mujie program. Thank you so much, Ms. Brenda.
Thank you so much for being a part of the program. Thank you. Dorothy, I mean, we'll get back to Charlie, but go ahead and comment on that, because I understand what he's talking about, but we still understand and know that there's a lot of fear that still flows through the Ugandan community.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brenda, and thank you very much, Mr. Musana, so much. Ms. Brenda, when people talk about there is real terror in Uganda, okay,
yes.
When Mr. Musana explained that the man believes in violence, this is no kidding, okay?
Yes.
The man is serious. Remember all those, the 2-year-olds, remember that video, on Fadu? People were killed and the man ordered the people order the army to leave the bodies in the streets so that people can see, and never again to try it, okay?
Yes.
There is real terror, and this is serious. We have spies planted everywhere. We have spies in Makerere University. Now, a few days ago, they announced that all those international students, most especially from Rwanda, Burundi, they are not students. These are soldiers. And by the way, for me, I know this. I have talked to people who are in Makerere University as students when Museveni was coming to power. That's why when you see the Makerere University students, every time they try to stand up, tear gas and guns, they show up. There is no joke, because he knows that these people can make change. That's how he came. He planted those people in the university. Now he's doing it again. Okay? These boys and girls, they are beaten, legs broken. They take away their clothes with blood and hide the evidence. Miss Brenda, we have more safe houses in Uganda than schools. When you hear singers sing, when you see people beaten with a hammer on their heads, and they say that these are thugs. No, they are not thugs. We have in Uganda, we have border business. Among these boys, there are tons of spies for the government. You get on the border and somebody start a conversation. What do you think is going on in Uganda? For you not knowing, you say blah, 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 blah. Our government, this man, you don't know the man on the border riding you somewhere is a spy. Before dropping you off, they just get a hammer and they kill you, okay? Death is real in Uganda. Safe houses are everywhere, and these safe houses, they look so good. They kill them at night, they come back and drop them on the streets. It is real fear, it is there. Violence is there. And that's why the media is suppressed, that no pictures now comes in the news. Nothing is to be said, okay? The fear is there. But we cannot keep running. We will not keep running. We have to stand up. The key thing, Miss Brenda, we have to realize that we are many, okay? And we have to realize that we can stand up to this guy. Even though he's clinging to the power of the gun. We have a lot of foreign people who have a lot of power. They carry guns. Non-Ugandans. The real citizens of Uganda cannot even talk. But we cannot keep this way.
Yeah, and Charlie, I'm going to let Charlie go ahead and comment on that about, what he was talking about and on into what Dorothy was saying there. Are you there, Charlie?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, what do you think about that? Because, it's like me and Dorothy was just saying, and even from what you were sharing before I went to our other caller, there is a lot of fear. And a lot of what he does, building up this dynasty and the other things that he's doing, there's a lot of fear in the Ugandan people that has almost paralyzed them.
Yeah, Brenda, if you look at the reason why Museveni has stayed in power for so long, you need to go a little bit further and understand the people of Uganda themselves.
Yes.
Because in 1971, when Idi Amin came to power, Idi Amin came to power because the people of Uganda were divided. And they've always stayed divided. This goes to the crux of everything that we keep talking about. In my show, I was talking about Nelson Mandela, realizing that he needed to put his biases aside, his allegiance to his tribe aside, and be more of a nationalist, a patriotic individual. And the way to do that was to put himself in the middle so he doesn't go one side or another. In Uganda, we don't have not just that personality, but even that idea. Ugandans are leaning one way or the other throughout. But the problem, the issue of us coming together and getting rid of a monster like Museveni goes so deep that Ugandans have not yet found a way to actually work together. Working together in order to bring about a common goal that we can all pursue as one. And I strongly believe this. We need self-reflection as a country. We need a lot of self-reflection until we get to the point where getting rid of Museveni and men like him and women like him are so important to us that we are willing to give our lives for it, like Mandela did. People like Museveni are always going to be a part of Uganda. Not only are they going to be a part of Uganda, they will come from outside Uganda. Because a Ugandan is not going to be able to create that kind of unity without using the gun. Unless people like you, people like me, people in Fadu put together concerted efforts to create what I believe to be a Mandelaism or a Madibaism. Because we let an individual to personify that, we therefore need to develop the very ideal that Mandela stood for and sell it very effective to our people. Ever since Museveni came to power, I think my friend Lawrence has been counting. There have been at least 130 different groups. Some, most of them we haven't even heard of. 130 plus different groups that have come up to fight and get rid of Museveni. And so far, none has succeeded. And many of those have not succeeded because they do their own thing without including other people. And even when they try to include people not outside their tribes, it has not worked. So for us Ugandans, we are going to have a change. It may come tomorrow. But be very careful what that change is, because that change might still perpetuate the killing, the mayhem, the distrust that permeates our country. That is where I shed tears for my country, because we haven't learned that. We are very far from that, Brenda.
Yes. Yeah. I sense that a lot when some of the callers come in and some of the conversations that are had on the radio program. A lot of what you still read in the media, comments that are made by Ugandans about other Ugandans, like when the fire happened. Some of the comments were very uncalled for. I felt like they were very uncaring for the fact that these people had just lost some of the things they lost. So you're right in saying that a lot of the mindset of the Ugandan people have to change. We are winding down here, so let me go ahead. Thank you so much, Charlie, for all your comments and everything you had to share. Your program was indeed a beautiful program with a salute to Nelson Mandela there. So we appreciate you and for all that you contribute to Voice Uganda Radio also. Dorothy, I'm going to go ahead and give you a few minutes. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and give you a few minutes here before I close out the program, just to go ahead and share from the last minutes here of some of the comments that were just made. Dorothy, are you there?
Yes, Ms. Brenda, I'm here. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I'd like to thank all the callers, Mr. Musana, Mr. Lacon. Oh, sure, we love you guys. The point is, Ms. Brenda, that we take out of here today from this program, Museveni never came to help Uganda, to develop, to make Uganda going forward, but he has this kind of hatred, because when they say that we gave them food but we didn't give them plates, it is because each family we had one plate. And then from all two plates, the mother and the father, then they served the children. So when we used the banana leaves to give them food, I don't know what they would have done if we never gave them food. But we gave them food as refugees. We gave them food. They had good education. But the way they are paying us back, this kind of jealousy and malice, and have a sense of belonging, something which does not belong to you, is wrong. So the only way to do this is to stand up and fight for true justice and justice for all. As I'm closing down, when we said that President Museveni, he all of a sudden woke up and he gave 10 million shillings to Tanzania, yes, we owe the Tanzania. But as you know, Mr. Museveni, he never does something unless he's going to benefit about it. He has to benefit. And it has to be many ways he's going to benefit out of it. At this time, in the point when Uganda is crying with the corruption, the way he's spending, selfish means, okay? He paid off Tanzania because we know there have been a great tension between Tanzania and Uganda. As Kagame was trying and Museveni to wage war, when the government of Tanzania refused to join the East African Federation, okay? So he figured to pay this money, not in good faith, not with good intentions. Now as he's planning ways of doing things, okay, to soften the tension. And to think that he's so much dying with this deal of East African Federation because he knows that when he joins these countries and hoping to be the leader or his son to go ahead with their plan of building the Tutsi Empire. So Ugandans and our neighbors will have to stand up for justice. Uganda is ours. One doesn't decide for us what to do. As he stood in France, they asked him if Uganda accepted to take their children in the Central Republic. He dodges the question. Then when he's asked, then he gets rude and he lies. My party decides. There is nobody in your party who speaks. Whoever says the truth is killed. So you, my fellow Ugandans, time to fight for true justice. Nelson Mandela did it. It is a responsibility. But he was a true fighter, as I was saying. Museveni fight against justice. Nelson Mandela fought for justice for people. That's why he was in prison for 27 years. But when he came to power for 5 years, because it was for the people, not power, not to benefit him, but it was for the people of South Africa. That's why he had to stand back, and he wanted to see his people taking over. What they have learned from him,
Brenda,
that is the difference. Thank you very much, Mr. Brenda.
Okay, we have another call. I'm going to go ahead and pick it up here, Dorothy. You can hang on if you like. Go ahead, caller. Are you there?
Thank you so much, Brenda. Thanks for the program. Thanks, Mr. Charlie. Thanks, everybody. But Brenda, this is Chicky from Sydney. The liar, when the liar is got the money and the army, there's no way you can drive him out, but there is a way. I don't mean there's no way to fight. But he is a liar, he's a cunning guy, he plays cunning tricks. As Dorothy, this is inclusion on Dorothy's contribution before. Because this guy lied all Ugandans since from the beginning. Since when we were children, we were just children. And when he came into to fight the war in the 80s, again he lied. This guy played major roles changing the previous governments. Previous governments, I'm talking about the government which was in around 1979, which was led by Professor Yusuf Lule, the late. He was a major contributor. He's the one who was part of the group anyway.
It's gone.
Oh, I think I lost that caller. If he's still on board, we'll give him a few minutes to call back in. I think what he's saying, Dorothy, is true, because that's what I talked about here at the early part of the show, that the Ugandan people were deceived into thinking that they could believe and trust in this government, and that has not been the truth, even up to this day, 28 years later. I think Dorothy is, I don't know if she went away or what, but...
I'm still here, Mama Brenda. I'm still here. Yes, and he still has the energy to lie. He can stand there and tell the international community, and dodge question. I mean, he's a liar. He's so a liar. Really, the NRM people, they are coerced. They are called in the state house in the middle of the night. If they stand up their ground, he shows up in the parliament with a uniform and K-47, whatever it is, too. I mean, this guy intimidates. He doesn't listen to anybody. My party will decide. When will 7 decide that, 27 years, and then you get out of power, then Muhoozi take over. When he has come back and divided our kings, our kingdoms, killed our culture, Miss Brenda will have this moral decay. This thing was also planned. We were planned in the master plan. When people have no courage to hand to, courage is a very important thing. Yeah.
I know. Well, I thank you so much for being a part of the conversation here today on Freedom at Hand. Thank you so much for all the callers that called in to be a part of the program today and everything that you had to share. I'm sorry that we lost our last caller that was coming in there, I think, from Australia, but we probably won't be able to get him back. I will leave you with one closing thought here, and it is a thought from Nelson Mandela, and it simply says, if a man stands on another man's neck, 2 men suffer. Well, that might have been the way that he looked at the situation, but for the sitting president in Uganda now, I don't think that is the way that he sees, thinks, or feel about anyone other than himself. Thank you so much for being a part of us on this Sunday. Thank you so much for being a part of Voice Uganda Radio. I am Miss Brenda, and you have been listening to Freedom at Hand here on Voice Uganda Radio. And we will talk to you again on Wednesday with the American Connection and all of the other programs throughout the week and next weekend. God bless you and